Hey, it's Shoei. Welcome back to my channel. This video is my top 10 reads from 2019. It's very overdue. I mean, we're well into February. This is a pretty self-explanatory video, better late than never. In my last one, I talked about all the other books that I read last year, so if you're interested in that, I would definitely recommend you go and watch because there were a lot of really good books. I included a timestamp for just the books that I rated 4 stars, so yeah, I would definitely recommend at least watching that section so that you kind of hear my recommendations. This video might be a bit of a mess because I have to record it really quickly. I just came out of the shower, so I look like a bit of a mess. My laptop is also dead, so I can't refer to that for like the titles or the Goodreads synopsis. Also, what do you guys think about this setup? I actually really like it because you've got my bookshelves. I think the lighting is kind of better. You don't get the glare in my glasses from looking at the window. Let me know what you think and I will just get straight into the books. Before I start actually, I realized there's one book that I forgot to mention in the last video. This is one that I rated 4 stars and really enjoyed, but not in my top 10, just thought I'd mention, and that is The Best We Could Do by T. Boy, which is a graphic novel memoir about the author's parents who were Vietnamese refugees who moved to America, and it's about like her and her parents' stories and her relationship with her parents and with, you know, her history and her culture, that kind of stuff. And I really did enjoy it. I would recommend it. However, for the sake of this video and me getting it finished in time, I'm not going to talk about it too much. At number 10, I have a book that I did mention in my last video because apparently I didn't plan out very well, and that is A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. This is one of the books that I studied for literature, and I just really loved it. I loved it as a text, even upon my first reading before we got into the analysis, I enjoyed it, but every time that we looked at it in class and every time that I kind of reread it, I just fell in love with it a bit more. All my tabs and my annotations were very satisfying because I feel like I'm not the best annotator, or at least at the start of last year I wasn't a very good annotator, and I think I have improved, and this is like one of those books that I really enjoyed myself in. Talked about it further in the last video, so I will leave it at that. And at number 9, I have Call Me By Your Name by Andre Ackerman. It's set in Italy in, I think, the 80s and follows Elio and Oliver. Oliver is like a guest staying at Elio's family's house, working as like a student under his dad. They kind of start to form a relationship. It's basically just a love story, not just a love story. The book really kind of focuses on Elio. It's told from his perspective and it's full of his thoughts. It's like a coming of age, identity kind of book. And I'm just gonna put it out there, I did enjoy the movie more than the book. I objectively really liked the book. I really enjoyed the writing and the whole story. I did like it a lot. I mean, it made it onto my top 10. But the movie, like, kind of struck a chord with me more. It made me kind of feel more invested and I got more emotional. I don't know how much I have talked about it on this channel because I think there were a couple videos where I mentioned it that I didn't end up putting on here. But trust me, I was talking about that movie a lot when I first watched it, and I rewatched it like so many times in the last year. Kind of has made me love the book more in retrospect. So this is one that I kind of really want to reread now that I've watched the movie, because I actually had a friend who, like, I forced her to watch the movie with me because, like, I loved it so much and I knew she would enjoy it as well. And so she watched the movie and then read the book. And she just said that she feels like she enjoyed the book a lot more because of that, because she got emotionally invested through the movie and that made her more receptive to like all of Elio's inside thoughts in the book. And I think that actually makes sense. So I'm gonna here recommend the ultimate reader sin to watch the movie before reading the book in this case, because I think that it might actually enhance the reading experience. I can't really talk about how much I enjoy the book without relating it to the movie. Like, in my mind, I just loved the movie so much and I have so many memories, and having rewatched it so many times, that my enjoyment of this book is quite linked to the movie. This goes into like a theme of something I am realizing. I want to reread a lot of books. There are a couple on this list even that I want to reread because I think it will just enhance my experience of it. And yeah, my memory is so bad that I need to reread it to like remember why I loved it so much. At number 8, I've got The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book that was on people's favourite lists a lot last year and I think the year before. I can't remember when this actually came out, but it's a booktube favourite, and I was no exception. I really enjoyed this. I loved Evelyn Hugo, I loved her character and her voice, and just all of the characters actually. I really enjoyed their interactions and their personalities, even the ones that were a bit horrible. It was just a very entertaining read. If you didn't know, which I'd be surprised if you didn't, this follows Evelyn Hugo, who was this really big film star in Hollywood. Much later in the future, she gets in contact with this journalist and says that she will tell her her whole life story. And this is a big opportunity because she really does not give any interviews like this about her life, even though her life had a lot of things going on, scandals, the such. So we get to see Evelyn Hugo's story, and we also see the journalist trying to figure out why she's the one who's been chosen to tell the story. Yeah, I listened to it on audiobook and I really enjoyed that experience. I know this is a very hyped story, but I would still 100% recommend it. I think it was worth the hype. Next up at number 7, I've got Normal People by Sally Rooney. Another one that is a booktube favourite, and actually not just on booktube. This is just a very popular and very well-loved book, and it's taken me ages, but I finally read it and loved it. It has made me very excited for university. I need to start off with the plot before I start saying my thoughts. This follows 2 characters whose names I've forgotten and can't look up because of the aforementioned laptop problem. But it follows a girl and a guy throughout their life, know each other from high school, and then it follows them until like university, I think until they finish university. Basically as young adults, kind of finding their place in the world, and just like their relationship, how they come in and out of each other's lives, and a lot of like obstacles and problems that they face. You might be confused as to why it's making me excited for university, because they didn't necessarily have the best university experience, if we're going to be honest. It was that sense of growing up together and changing, and different like dynamics as you encounter different people and different environments. I loved reading about it, and I kind of can't wait to experience that myself. Having had such like a very sheltered life, being at the same school for my whole life, like I've only really known one experience and one community, and branching out of that seems, a little scary, but mostly just exciting. But back to the actual book, I think the main reason that I loved this so much was how grounded and down to earth it is. If you've been watching my videos, you know by now that I am not a fan of cheesiness, but I absolutely love like very grounded and real stories, and dialogue and characters and all of that. Like the more real it is, the more I love it. Excepting fantasy, because obviously, or sci-fi. They're fantasy and sci-fi. But in my contemporaries, like the closer they are to real life, the better. And this one was it was so natural. Literally, the title says it all. Normal people. These are people that you could imagine that you might meet. Now, the rest of the list are books that I rated 5 stars, and it's harder for me to have like put them in an order. So I have put them in an order, but these are all just the books that I really enjoyed. And the first that I've got at number 6 is We Are Displaced by Malala Yousafzai and a bunch of other young female refugees. So Malala has her other book, her autobiography, I Am Malala, which a lot of people have read, but she also came out with this kind of collection, I guess, where half the book is talking about her experience kind of once she's moved to the UK as a refugee. The second half of the book shares the stories of a bunch of other young female refugees that she has met when she's gone and travelled to like refugee camps and that kind of thing. It's just a very like important and well done book. I thought it was written well, and all of the girls told their stories in a really lovely way. I did mention it, I think, in the brief inquiry into online relationships tag, that like the topic of refugees is one that I feel quite passionately about. I just feel like it's one of the greatest injustices in our world that people are so scared of or like hateful towards refugees when they are such vulnerable people and they're treated so awfully a lot of the time, especially coming from an Australian perspective where Australia's treatment of refugees is quite like abysmal. It's something I feel like a bit obligated, I guess, to educate myself on and to speak up about. And I think this is one of the best ways to get started on that. The books, I'm pretty sure, donate like all of their profit to organizations that work with refugees as well. So I'll probably have to get myself a copy of it because I just read it from the library. But yeah, this is definitely a very worthwhile read, a very nice and well put together project. Now, number 5, I have The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This is an adorable graphic novel with the most gorgeous art. Honestly, I think the art is like the main selling point that has made this a 5-star read and put it so high up my list because it's just beautiful. I love it. I love the colors. I love the actual art style. It doesn't have much of a story, really. You just meet a bunch of characters and little tea dragons. This book has gotten a lot of love on BookTube as well. I've picked out a lot of like BookTube favorites in my top 10. Favorites for a reason, clearly. One of the other things that it's praised for a lot, which I really appreciated, was the representation in terms of race, sexuality, disability. It's obviously very character focused because there isn't much of a story. I've heard that the next book, which I've forgotten the name of, is like even more plotless, but it was just a really lovely experience. I read this on like a study break. I was studying with my friend in the library and we decided to take a little break and we just sat down with this book and flipped through it together. And she was an art student, so she was like mainly admiring the art, and I wanted to read it because I'd heard of it so much on BookTube. And yeah, it was just, the whole experience was very lovely. At number 4, I have The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. I read this right at the start of the year, so my memory of it is very fuzzy, but it was a very engaging and fun read. The characters in this book, like, they are reincarnated into the same lifetime over and over again. Something is going wrong with like this society of people who are reincarnated, and like potentially it could mean the end of the world, so like they have to go on this sort of quest, I guess, to try and stop whatever is happening. It's a very vague explanation, but I think I remember it being quite like a complicated plot. But it was just very interesting to me. I really loved exploring the concept and seeing where it went. So even though I don't remember the details, I would recommend it just for like the fun adventure experience that it is. Not that it's like totally action focused. I feel like I remember it being quite like an intellectual book. I don't know what that means, but that's like the feeling, that's the word that came to mind. But yeah, if that sounds like an interesting concept to you, I would pick it up. And now we're on to my top 3. I would say that these were like the standouts of the year. Like these are my absolute favorites. And again, in like not too much of a particular order, they're just, yeah, my 3 favorites. Actually, maybe before I say that, I will give one honourable mention to The Diviners, which I reread last year, and I also did give it 5 stars, so it would make it onto the top 10 list, but I don't usually include books that I reread. If you want to hear my thoughts on The Diviners as the series as a whole, then you should watch my last video because I did talk about it. At number 3, I have Australia Day by Stan Grant. This is like a collection of essays by Stan Grant, who is Indigenous Australian author. He was a journalist as well. He's like half Indigenous, half Irish, I think. And this book is really about his identity and the Australian identity and the identity like of our nation and of nationhood as a whole. The central question of Australia Day, because if you weren't aware, Australia Day is on the 26th of January, which is the day that the first fleet arrived in Australia. So for Indigenous Australians, it's known as Invasion Day, and it signifies the beginning of colonialisation. It's split into like 5 sections, each with like 3 or 4 kind of essays, and some of them focus on his experience, his own identity as a mixed person. Then there are some that look more broadly in terms of like history, global history and politics. And these are all things that I've been thinking about quite a bit recently. or at least like I had when I read this like at the end of last year. So it came, like I read it at a really great time. I really want to read his other book, which is like a memoir, but this specifically was a really great read at the time that I picked it up. And I did record like a bit of a discussion talking about identity, both like the book and my own thoughts. We'll see if it comes out at all. I would still definitely strongly recommend this book, particularly for Australians. I want to make an effort of reading more books by Indigenous Australian authors and just overall improving my own kind of effort in reconciliation. Look out for that discussion video where I will probably talk about this book a bit more in depth. Tabbed and dog-eared a lot of pages because there were a lot of passages that I really like. Now moving on to number 2, I have Bird's Art, Life, Death by Keo McClear. This is another kind of memoir, I guess. The author took a year she got really into bird watching in an effort to inspire her writing. I don't know exactly what it was. I just really loved the way that this book was written, the way that she like weaved in the themes that she mentions in the title, I guess, of writing and creativity with bird watching and birds. Like she kind of weaves them in a really lovely way. I listened to this on audiobook and I really want to get myself a copy, not just because I enjoyed reading it so much, but because I like to highlight things and bookmark things that I really enjoyed. Like I wasn't totally switched on the whole time I was reading it. Like I kind of knew that this was something I was enjoying a lot and I liked the ideas a lot, but I didn't really take as much time as I would have liked to like stop and think about everything I was reading because it was like a borrowed library book. So yeah, it's something that was definitely a favourite of this year, but I feel like it will be a favourite over time and that when I come back to it, I will keep enjoying it a lot more. If you like kind of thoughtful, philosophical memoirs, that kind of thing, then this is definitely one to check out. I realize that that's kind of the type of book I enjoy a lot. It's not the only type of book I enjoy, but it is definitely a genre that I am leaning towards, and that a lot of my favourites have come out of things that are very like philosophical or non-fiction essays and memoirs. So something that I will have to keep my eye on and pick up more of. And finally, my favourite book for 2019 was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And this is very similar to Bird's Art, Life, Death in that I really want to reread it to get more out of it because I think there's just so much in there that I haven't figured out or picked up on yet. But even from my first reading, I just thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's mostly set in like this post-apocalyptic version of the world where this virus has wiped out most of the population. We follow a group of characters who are kind of roaming around America as a traveling like performing company. They perform Shakespeare, and we also follow some perspectives from like earlier before the virus hit or as the virus was hitting. We follow a lot of different perspectives and they all interweave together in like such a clever and beautiful and really interesting way. Setting itself and like the concept behind it is really interesting, but the characters and the way that the story is told is just spectacular. It's a very well done story and again, a booktube favourite. Everyone seems to love this book, so I would definitely recommend it. I think I will leave that there. I kind of want to do a video, like I personally want to look over my favourite like books from the last year or two and see what kind of things I enjoy. And I also wanted to do a kind of discussion about reading tastes and my reading tastes because I have like some thoughts about it. I might make that into a video for you guys. I don't know if you'd be interested. Let me know if you would be. If a couple of you say that's something you'd like to hear, then maybe I will make that a video. You might not be seeing a whole lot of me for the next month or two because February is just a very busy month, and by the time February finishes, we'll be like well into school and I'll have like assessments and things. I would love to talk to you guys about any of the books that I mentioned. let me know if you enjoyed any of these because I would really love to hear your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then maybe leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you're having a lovely week and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!